All righty. See if you folks starting to jump in here. Happy Monday to you all. Got Monday, May the 5th, 2025, live with Trade Ideas Q&A support session here. And as always, this is an open forum. Pre-done content. So we rely on you folks to drive the content of this with your questions on what you are looking for with software. So please don't be shy. Get those questions in. The sooner the better, of course. And we'll get rock and rolling on this. So again, like I said, it's a live Q&A. We don't do any pre-done content, so we are looking for you to drive the content with your questions. All right, no questions coming in for me right now, but folks, it's open forum here, right? We do this to have you folks ask your questions that you need answered from us here on the software. So again, as I keep saying, please don't be shy. Get those questions in for me. Let's see, how to open a window if I accidentally closed it from a layout. Well, hopefully you have it saved to your cloud, right? Anytime you create a window and you're gonna, you want that to stay around and you want to be able to load it, I'd right click that window, save or share to cloud, go ahead and save that, and then you can go to File, Load from Cloud, and it'll be up here in your cloud. That would be the way to do that. If you don't have it saved to your cloud, then hopefully it was saved in the layout you open, and you could always just go File, Load Layout, and if it was your default layout, you'd go ahead and select your default layout and open that, or if it was a different layout, you'd select and open that. You could also, you go to File, Load Layout, you go to the backups here. There's some automatic backing up that's usually done. And you could find a timestamp in here when that window might have been open in the layout and load that way as well. And then again, I would always make sure you are backing everything up individually, back each window up individually to the cloud, and then I back it up as a layout to the cloud as well. Wow, BCRX, huh? That's something. So Safa, let me know if that helped you out there. Hopefully that worked out in your favor well. A few charts, a couple of symbols. I'm sorry, TD. I'm sure we could pull it up. The trade desk. Where it only takes 6 years to open this chart. Stock's been in a downtrend for a hot moment here. Plenty of liquidity on it, right? I mean, it's not doing anything special on volume at 1.6 on relative. It's traded 6.1 million shares, so clearly it's a fairly well traded stock. I don't know what time frame you're thinking about on this here. I'm guessing daily. So, for the moment, it looks like it's putting a bottom there, but I mean, it hasn't been able to get through this level yet. So it's back at it. So, that's what I'm looking at there. Um, I would note that it move up here on declining volume. That's not always awesome. We got a little pickup in volume here with this green day. So those are things I'd be looking at as far as TTD goes. PEG. What do you look like? Sideways fading. Mute to negative mute reaction on earnings. So, here's earnings from a few days ago and just kind of still sliding and, just sliding overall. Stocks in a downtrend without any question. Lower highs this whole way, lower lows this whole way, right? So stocks in the downtrend, it's going to take something to undowntrend it. So, those are the things that I could say as far as that goes. Again, nothing's happening today on it. 1.28 on a relative volume, not even a million shares traded yet. So nothing exciting there. So again, keep the questions coming, folks. Come one, come all with the questions, please. Again, as I mentioned previously, I don't have any pre-done content on this, so I should say, depend on you all to drive the content with your questions. That's what we do this for. No, we do not have 10-second charts, sorry. And there's no intention to add them at this time, just to be honest with you. If I could flip a switch and give you 10-second charts, I would, but from the blueprint of what's going on, I can tell you that unfortunately it's not something that's being worked at this time. So again, folks, don't be shy. Keep those questions coming for me here. How are China stocks looking today? I don't know about individual stocks. We look at the FXI here. My chart decides to load. That would be cool, right? So it looks like a sideways day so far for Chinese large cap stocks. Pretty mute. Not a whole lot's going on there. K-Web, let's see. Wow. Try that again. There we go. Also, much the same here on the K-Web. Why that? There we go. So yeah, not a whole lot doing there. Mini gap down, close that gap. Kind of just trading sideways at this point for China. So I'd say more or less it looks just like the SPY right now. All right, here's a SPY. Pretty similar. Slightly below on the SPY still, not by much. So not a whole lot cooking here. 0.6 on the relative volume. So as compared to what we had going on back here, fairly mute. And I mean, look at this, the volume today. That's not looking like it's likely to catch up to last week's volume anywhere at this point. But we'll see. We've got 4 hours left to go. A little less than 4 hours to go. So we'll see what happens here. As the saying goes, hard telling, not knowing. But, for now, that's the bottom. This area here. I thought 550 might be more of the challenge. It looks like this area around here, 565-ish or so. That's going to be the challenge actually to really get through. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Keep the questions coming, folks. Keep the questions coming. What else is doing here? I guess we can look at the top 10 on my relative strength race here from the open. It started off the session with GPUS up on the chart there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me. I'd much rather answer your questions than kind of mindlessly talk about charts that I have I'm not trading any of this stuff. It's just where some action is today, right? So just something to talk about while I fill the airspace waiting for questions to come in. But yeah, GPUS, falling knife, downtrend, blah, blah, blah. Clearly it must have had some kind of news come out today. Gap up and go to this point. Moving sideways for a while here now. So we'll see if it can't break out of that box that it's put itself in. Looks like a small float. Relative volume and liquidity is kicking in high gear right now, obviously. Z-Car, let's see what that looks like. As a micro float stock, it looks like. I'm guessing this thing is reverse split itself up a time or two at least. Why would I guess that? I would guess that based on that lifetime high number right there. I highly doubt the stock was ever at 15,220. That's just my 2 cents. So kind of hard to base anything on this daily chart here, given that nonsense. But obviously it's been in play for a day or 3 here now. Relative volume still really kicking. Lots of liquidity. Micro float, this thing, bumping and grinding up and down big time. Looks to have found itself breaking down a bit here. It's bouncing on that $10 level. So let's see what happens there with that. ATHE, what are you doing? Who are you? What are you doing? So having itself a bit of a day on light volume, I would consider that. It's only 700,000 shares traded. That's good for 13 relative volume. So clearly the stock trades nearly nothing. in general. Um, it looks like it had itself a bit of a fourth quarter there, end of the fourth quarter and beginning of the first quarter. Bounced and gave it up, and now trying to get it back right here. So, interestingly enough, we can see the volume all spotty on it here, some volume and a dip, some volume and a dip, volume and a dip. A little bit going on right there. So, that's what we got going on there. A little bit of a spread on the stock, about 5 cents, give or take 3, 4, 5, 6 cents, depending on the moment. And one of those ones you want to be careful. You don't want to see someone pull the ripcord on you. It's making a bit of a move again here now. IVF, what are you? Looks like to be a new issue or a symbol change or something. Very small float. Pop and kind of just fading for the rest of the day here, so it's under pressure. Won't assume this will be making a comeback today, but you never know. BCRX, I talked about that a moment ago. The reason why I talked about it was stock that I traded a lot several years ago. Just used to always seem to be in play. Haven't seen it much in the last couple of years. There it is nevertheless. Had earnings this morning, clearly a positive reaction to earnings. Doing about 14 times what it's normally doing on the volume here. Very clear from that. 13.2 million shares traded, so that's plenty of liquidity. I will note the volume's kind of faded on the day here, so we'll see if it can't get itself going again. Or did it, kind of fail at high of the day in the late morning and early afternoon here, and that's the end of it. Only time will tell. NIVF. So I guess this was another reverse splitter at some point. 656 lifetime high and 900K in the float. So I think that's a reasonable assessment. And again, folks, if anybody has questions, I'd much rather answer your questions than kind of randomly go over these charts from the scan, right? But if you're not asking questions, so be it. If you're giving me the silent treatment, I can't do much about it. I'll just go through some charts and stuff like that and fill the airtime that way. But IVF, clearly a downtrend overall. And 700,000 shares, good for 4 times. It's 4.25 on the relative volume. So clearly a stock that trades very little in general. I don't think there's a whole lot to really comment on this at this point. Not very interesting, to be honest. Bit spready too. An 8-cent spread right now on a less than $4 stock, not ideal. ARVN. Some kind of research and development, physical engineering and life sciences, whatever that means. So it had earnings a couple of days ago, clearly a negative reaction to earnings. Trying to gain some back, obviously met with some sellers. Lack of buying conviction. Stock hasn't exactly been in an uptrend, to say the least, for a while here. So got that going against it as well. Not doing a whole lot on the volume side of things. Liquidity is all right. About to be 1.4 million in a moment or three here, but 1.28 on that relative volume. Certainly nothing to write home about whatsoever. RYET, another either symbol change or new issue, something like that. Maybe something to the effect of that. Um, I mean, 450K. I don't think anybody's going to care about that. 1.73 relative volume, so I think it's irrelevant. We got some questions. Can I look at CRML? We can. What do we got? What do we got? Give me the loot. Give me the loot. So yeah, in a clear downtrend, right? The daily chart going back a year, really swept out from underneath it. Feet just moving sideways, not a whole lot going on there. You can see some volume came into it back here, but it's met with the sellers right away. Relative volume kicking all right on that, 3.24 and 2.8 million shares traded. So it's, liquid stock and some mild interest in it here. But for whatever reason, I couldn't tell you, obviously. I will say this, metals and mining, we've seen plenty of, so lithium. I don't think electric cars are doing too hot in the market. And that's really what's going to drive lithium stocks, I believe. So you kind of tied, I think, more to the automobile industry's push for electrical vehicles. And that's clearly not gone very well overall. So, there's that. So yeah, not awesome looking here on that chart. I hate to tell you that, but for all I know, they got a big contract in the works, and maybe they get some big news release that helps them. Of course, no way to predict that kind of stuff, but just from a technician standpoint, it's down. It's down on the bottom. It's down at the bottom on it. Given KIDZ recent price movement and low float, do you think its momentum is driven more by retail speculation? I don't like, what would be the speculation? You're probably, I guess, would be talking about news. And just for reference, I painstakingly avoid the news at all costs. So, if there's news involved in this, first off, I would never make any decision based on news, not for an individual stock anyways. So, just from a technical standpoint and me looking at this float here, all I see is a, potential pump and dump, really, from whoever decided to pump it for whatever reason. And, clearly that's playing out right now. If let's just say this thing, held up around this area and it didn't fall, that would look pretty darn good then for that. But for the moment, whatever reason anybody's speculative on it, if anybody's speculative on it for whatever reason, speculations don't usually last. Plus, the old saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. Right. So if it comes out, if there's some news that they're waiting for to come out that's positive, usually you run up on the rumors of the news and then you'd sell on the confirmation of the news also. It's, just kind of a general thing. That's the kind of stuff I'd be looking at as far as this goes. I'd also note this, though, you got this massive volume here, less than half here, and this is going to be less than half of that today, it looks like. So I'd be real cautious with that. I will say this, it doesn't have that big of a spread right now. It's 2 cents, the spread, which I do find kind of interesting given the float and the price and all that. Now it just increased to 4 cents, but it's not ridiculous or anything like that. Sometimes with stocks like this, I'm not surprised when I see, a 10, 15, 20 cent spread on it. And that's kind of that's a tough spread on a small price stock like this. 1, 2, 3 cents on something like this. All right, it's a couple cent spread. But Yeah, that's what I'd be looking at as far as KIDZ goes. So, all right, I like that. I like that. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Give me some more stuff, even if it's a chart we want to look at or something like that. I'm cool with that. That works. Better than I think it's always better when you folks drive some content and ask some questions that you'd rather hear about than me just kind of aimlessly, randomly droning on. I've been testing out one-click strategies with a percent trailing stop. Goal is to get into a trade and take profit if needed. If have to be away from PC. Question is, how can I find the percent sweet spot? I don't. I wouldn't know how to answer. I'm sorry, Dylan. There is no percent sweet spot. That would really be my answer, right? You have no way to know what a stock is going to do, right? And hindsight's always going to be 2020 on this stock. Oh, I should have a 3% trail, and this one I should have a 1% trail, and this one I should have 5% trail. I don't think there's a sweet spot for it. It's just like when I get into a position, I don't. It's not like I'm like every position I get in, I'm not using like a 3% stop, for example. I use a combination of technical indicators for a stop, and then I share size based on how far that stop is away from my entry. So there's no one size fits all when we're doing anything in trading for the most part. Not in that regard. Not for me, anyways, personally. Now, what you're going to find, through testing, you're going to see XYZ is going to work well, and and then ABC worked better this time. I don't think so, because it's unless you're trading the five, unless you're trading like five same stocks and they behave exactly the same all the time, which is not likely to happen. You have to remember that probably 95 or plus percent of stocks are going to trade in lockstep with the averages. Um, so you're kind of tethered to that. And then, if you're not trading those stocks, there's no way to really know what they're going to do volatility wise. I mean, you could test it out, obviously, but I just don't think you're going to find. I don't think you're going to find a sweet spot that's like, yeah, that's the one. This thing is, this is going to kill it for me. You may find some kind of happy medium saying, all right, I can live with the results of this as a trailing stop, saying, for example, I don't know if it's 3% or whatever, but I don't use trailing stops. So I've never used a trailing stop in my entire life. So like, I don't have any research personally to share on this either. I would suggest, maybe running the strategy, create a couple of paper accounts. This is what I would do. When I want to test things, I would come into the accounts tab here. Hold on, let me connect to Paper Trader. And then Riza, just bear with me. I see your questions there. I would come in here and I'd create, a new simulated account and give it its name and a starting value if you want it and all those things like that. And then I would test it with a 1% trail and a 3% trail and a 5% trail. I'm just using those as arbitrary numbers to test with, and test it over a couple of weeks and see what you find. But I would make sure you're testing with the same stocks, right? If you're testing the 1% with Tesla and the 3% with Apple and the 5% with Meta, the results are gonna vary because of those stocks in that regard. And when backtesting a strategy, one can adjust the starting equity and dollar share amount. I've seen that different dollar share amounts with a given equity gets you different results in terms of profit factor and strategy returns. So when trading one strategy in B plus, how can you adjust the dollar share amount? Or no, the AI doesn't do that. You'd come into strategy. Like if you loaded the strategy in here, right click, load from cloud, you have that strategy in cloud, you load it. Whatever you tested it with will load in as the trade management stuff. So like here's stuff that I was messing around with. And so when I come to edit strategy, it had all this stuff in here. All the stuff from the back testing came in here. Order details, I'm risking $200 on the stop, and how I use that stop and a hold time here, and all that came in from there. And you could adjust that yourself in here as well. You want it, based on stop loss, based on fixed shares, dollars, then you'd make the adjustments here. So that's what you would do there, Riza. You'd make all those adjustments uh, if you wanted to after the fact there. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking at there as far as that stuff goes. All right, excellent. Glad that helped. And Pepe mentioned the Fibonacci's. The one thing with the Fibonacci, like you wouldn't have a way to do that within the software here. But I don't have a lot of Fibonacci other than what I needed to know for it for passing the level 1 CMT. I don't have a lot to add on the Fibonacci stuff there. I'm one of those people when I don't know, I like to say I don't know. I've seen plenty of stuff play out on charts beautifully with Fibonacci's, and a lot of folks' technical analysis and papers and things like that. Also, regardless of my not using it, the Fibonacci's have to do with like a golden ratio we see play out in nature all over the place. So always kind of been fascinated by that. What else? What else? What else is going on here? Keep some stuff coming. Keep them coming. Keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming, girls. I much more enjoy this when you're all asking me questions. What else? What else? What else? I don't have a whole lot else right now, I gotta say. We have this bounce here in the markets, and kind of everybody's playing chicken with each other right now. What happens next? I do have to say, living from headline to headline or social media post to social media post gets old as a technician. I gotta say, we got some mute volume. We started the session. We are at point 0.6 or 0.58 in the relative volume for the SPY. So it is a sleepy day for the moment here on us. What that translates to. We talked about it at the beginning because it was at the top of my list here. So I just kind of casually went over it. So talking about massive downtrend, big gap, kind of grinding now. It's kind of really stuck in this range for a while here. Poked its head out, poked its head out, poked its head out. But it's fighting at the top of this range right now. So we'll see what that leads to. No, all good, all good. We ain't got nothing else going on right now, Mark. So take a look back at it, right? I mean, I'll say this: it's likely, whether to the long side or short side, and play for the rest of the day here. All things considered, if it continues to fail at this level, could be provide some short opportunities. Clearly, if it's able to bust up through 8 again, there'll be people looking at it to the long side again. So definitely one that's in that is without a question very, very, very much in play right now. Take a look at some of these stocks here from an evening scan. Let's see if there's anything that's going to interest me later on in the day, possibly. GNI, Genius Sports Limited. Yeah, I don't know. I got much interest in that. Yeah. I got earnings tomorrow morning, looks like. DHT, Deep Sea Freight Transport, GDX. ATEC, ATEC. I say, looking at this chart, this is held fairly well, all things considered. That's interesting. So positive reaction to this is a chart. I'll keep an eye on this one. I'm going to keep an eye on this one. Just find it interesting, you know, all through here, it didn't really crash out like the rest of the market. It did crashing out back here last summer, it looks like, into the fall, and started to recover itself after that. So that's interesting. That'd be interesting. What else? What else? What else? TRIP. TripAdvisor. Anybody got any trips planned lately? I'm just kind of kidding around. Terrible looking chart. That's a terrible looking chart. EYE. Sorry, folks. This is kind of like the homework I do at night a lot, and go through charts like this and try to find stuff that looks like it's held well. And if we continue to consolidate or bounce, some stuff that I may want to take for a day, 48 hours, something like that. Let's say 12 to 72 hours type of thing. This one not so much. Someone would say, well, why this one not so much? We're like, well, it's sold off here, and it's kind of like just fighting this level here. It's got that rate above it. Not crazy about a risk reward on this one right here. Double verify holdings. Yep. Zeta, ZETA. Wow, this thing really, I didn't realize how much this thing had shot up in the past here. What an unwinding, too. Interesting. Clearly not a positive reaction to earnings. BTU, I feel like I looked at this chart recently. Maybe I didn't. I feel like there was some interest, or someone had interest in it. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Yeah, it's coal. I feel like we looked at this recently. Maybe I'm crazy. But now, downtrend, kind of just, not a whole lot going on here. So yeah, X-ray there almost looks the same as that Peabody chart we just looked at, right? That's funny. So yeah, slim pickings. I'm surprised. There's a lot of stocks in the scan here right now, but not loving a lot that I'm seeing here. Not loving it. Camping World. Yeah. You know what it is, so many things have been in big downtrends as it is anyways, so a little pop will get them on the scan, unfortunately, right now. Again, we got a few minutes before I wrap up here for the day, folks. If you got questions, please don't be shy. Get those in for me here. So, all right, not much coming in. I guess we don't have a lot to talk about today, so we'll wrap this up in a few minutes, I suppose. Just trying to find some ideas to talk about here. See if anything here stands out to me. Sorry, I'm scanning these tickers here and nothing's standing out to me. HIMS, this shot up and it's bounced again, then it collapsed and it bounced pretty well, actually. No? Take a look here. Or we won't take a look if the chart doesn't load, whatever. Yeah, that's an interesting look here. This big, massive move up here and an unwinding and curling around here. Yeah, this is interesting. Up through this area here, if it really kind of clears this again, I guess people want to buy their drugs online, right? I mean, that's what this is essentially. It's online pharmacy or whatever for, whatever, like hair loss and shit like that, I think. So, I would guess slippage, right? That would be my assumption there, Riza, is slippage. Right? There's no spread in the back tester. You're getting the quote best fill, which is never going to happen. That would have to be my assumption. TTD is working trade of the week a short while back. We talked about TTD earlier. What did it look like again? Come on, chart. Cooperate, will you? How to set up a pre-market scanner. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do it. I'm going to share a video with you that you can look at in your leisure, and then I'm going to go over some stuff with you too. But here, just take this link for pre-market scanning. All right, this video, and give it a look in a little while. But when it comes to pre-market scanning, there's two different things we can do here. We can just go with a top list, right? And in the pre-market, I like to keep things pretty simple because, there's only a handful of stocks going to be actionable anyways. So what I generally will do is I want to sort on things that are up the most from the close if I'm using a top list. So I would go, change from close, like on a percent. I, sort by that here. So we got the biggest ones on top. Then, this is going to have some pre-stuff in it already, but, volume, where we could split hairs. How soon do I want to see it volume-wise? But maybe start with 30,000 volume, 30,000 shares, something like that. There's no real way to compare volume in that way. Well, that's not true. You could use the volume today percent. So then in that case, I would add that filter, and it's taking a 10-day average of volume, and 100's normal, 200's 2 times, 300's 3 times, 400's 4 times. Yeah, so something we do that I don't like is that gap and change from close work exactly the same in the pre-market. But once the market opens, the gap filter works like a gap filter, which is just the change from the prior close to today's open, right? And it's static. It doesn't move after that, where change from close continues to calculate. I don't like that we do that. It makes it confusing, especially for newer traders that don't understand what gap actually is compared to change from close. So I just go with change from close. That's what I like to do. That's what I think is best to do. So by doing this, so let's just say, for example, if I make this scan and I say, all right, I want stocks, we're going to look at stocks that are $1 or more, traded 30,000 shares on the day. And there's going to be probably a lot of stocks in the pre-market that are going to meet that criteria, but they're not going to be interesting. Well, then I sort them, and the ones that are up the most from the close, they're the ones that get on the scan first. All right. And then afterwards, that's the server sort. And then afterwards, we have the display sort here. And I, use this display sort, see how this column's indented? I would use that display sort to put those ones at the very top here. I could display sort them also. I could say, I want you to bring on the ones that are up the most, but then I could display sort them based on volume, right? Or you can't use relative volume in the pre-market. It won't work. It'll block data. It's not there. Sorry, I got sidetracked a little bit, but there's the volume today percent. Come on, man. This is so annoying. So we have volume today percent. That's a 10-day average. It's this filter here. And I could add that as a column. And so again, the way this works, it'll be stocks that have done, 100 means normal, 200 is 2 times, 300 is 3 times, 400 is 4 times. So, if you've got a stock that's done 20, 30% of its full day's volume in the pre-market, chances are that's going to be kind of interesting. So you could also sort by volume, percent today, right? So you could say, all right, I want to see stocks that are this price or more, traded at least this many shares. I want the server to sort them by the ones that are up the most from the prior close. And then I want to display them sorted based on that have the, the biggest volume in them, like that. You could add some other stuff in here too for it to, like for example, we could go change, in the last, if I type right, change in the last 2 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that. You want to see stuff that's only moving in the last few minutes. That's just with topless. But then you could also create an alert window too. And you could have both of these, right? And you can kind of compare and mix and match with them. And so if you go to new and alert window, there are some alerts and filters that will not work in the pre-market. If you shoot me an email to info@trade-ideas.com, let me type that in there. info trade-ideas.com. If you shoot me an email there, I can get you a PDF of what does and doesn't work in the pre-market. But so like, for example, new high doesn't work in the pre-market. You want pre-market high, right? Pre-market highs or pre-market lows if you're looking for short opportunities, whatever, right? We could add that alert. Also, this crossed above resistance will work in the pre-market. There's our running up and running down family, the running family. So these will all work in the pre-market as well. So you get like 1 or 2 of these. There's also these high ones. Hold on, let me find it. So these high ones on the time frames, 5, 10, 15, 30, 60, those will work in the pre-market too. So you can have like a few different alerts. This way, your filters aren't getting blocked because the alert isn't necessarily met. So for example, this is why I would use like the running up family. Let's just say, for example, stock in the pre-market, it makes this big move and it comes up to here and it started here. And then it pulls down to like here and it settles in and it starts to, sideways. And then it starts to make this move here. Well, if you're only using pre-market high, you're not going to get the alert, so you take that out, right? But maybe you want to see it a little bit before there with the alert. That's where the running up 5-minute high, crossed above resistance, those alerts may help you in that regard to catch it before it makes a new pre-market high. You may not want to trade it before then, but you might just want it to alert again to get back on your radar and your focus again through the scan like that. So that's where I do that. And I cover all this in that video that I shared with you as well. But I figured, let me share with you on screen here. And then you got the video to refer to afterwards. And so, you could build it like that, pre-market high. Maybe we're looking at, like I said, the running up family. Let me clear this drawings, running up. Maybe the running up here, we could add that alert, for example. So we got those alerts that are in there. And then we could say, again, with our filters, I want to see, it's more than $1. And maybe it's the change from close. It's got to be up, 2% or more, just to weed out some of the stuff that's we don't really, really care about. Again, do we want a minimum volume threshold? Is it 30K? Is it 50K? That everybody's got their minimum when they want to be alerted. There's no right answer on this. It's the right answer for you. Maybe to help weed out some of the garbage, the volume percent today, you say, let's get a 15% in there. It's at least traded 15% of its volume. And so, these are some ways to try to get rid of some of those head fakes and less interesting items that come in the pre-market while still getting what we want. So those are the kind of things that I'd be looking at scanning in the pre-market. I generally will say pre-market, post-market scanning, you don't want to use too many filters, because sometimes like you get this burst on a stock and the burst might be early, right? And all of a sudden, then it starts to cook a minute or two later, and you don't get, if you have too many filters and the values are too high in it, you don't see that early burst on the stock, right? And then you don't start to catch it till later. It's tough because you're also going to get more head fakes that way, right? It's like give and take kind of stuff. But that's that's kind of my 2 cents on that. Volume today refers starting from 12 a.m. No, start from 4 a.m. Eastern, because we scan the U.S. stock market 4 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern. So pre-market starts at 4 a.m. Eastern, Post-market ends at 8 a.m. Eastern. So that's what both the volume today percent and volume today shares, right? So you can see over here, see, this is, both of these are volume today, but you got volume today percent. Like I said, it's a 10-day average where 100 is normal. And this is just the shares. Those are the actual shares traded there. Like I said, avoid the relative volume filter in the pre and post market. Don't use that. Use this one instead. They're like first cousins, essentially. Not exactly the same, but you know, of course, like, look, if you want to see some kind of maybe shorter term volume in the pre-market, we do have these volume ones here, 1, 5, 10, 15, and 30 minutes. Those work similar to the volume today percent. 100 is normal, 200 is 2 times, 300 is 3 times, 400 4 times, so on and so forth. And they also use the 10-day average, and they go in like rolling time frames. So it's always looking at the current minute, what's going on in that current minute compared to the average a minute does over the last 10 days, basically. So, some other ways to try to weed out some of the nonsense. And again, I always, I always say start with looser values. Don't jump right up to like a 500 minimum value, especially in the pre-market. Start with like a 25, right? And work your way up and, with what's coming in and what it's excluding, what it's letting in, like that. It's a little trial and error, a little give and take. All we have for news is we don't have a news filter. We've got this here in the single stock window, this news tab. It's just a pull from a Google API, not a breaking news. I say it like kind of like because I know a lot of people want to have all the breaking news and stuff like that. We just don't have it. I wish I could say we did. I wish I could flip a switch and give it to you, obviously, but not something I can have. So yeah. So that's the way that goes. So all right, folks, we're past the top of the hour now. If you guys have any other questions for me, if you could pop those in. If not, I'm going to wind out for the day here and get back to my other tasks that I do have to get to. If there are other questions, if there's some other questions, I'm happy to answer those before I do shut down the live stream here. Also, just in case anybody's new here, they want to listen to some more chatter, have some more banter back and forth with traders, this software. We have our live traders room. It's open 9 a.m. Eastern till I say 2:30 p.m. Eastern. If people are engaging Barry, he will stick around longer. But if not, he's shutting around 2:30. And so we do this session when Barry takes his break. But that's the traders room there. There's the link coming in for it. So Barry's back from his break right now. And, there's a number of people in that room. Some are more vocal than others. People just talking ideas and stuff like that. Nobody's like, oh, we're all buying this stock or any crap like that. There's no pumping. There's no scheming. Anybody that tries to pull that crap is going to get ejected real fast. It's kept very, very professional in that room. So I don't do Zoom calls. Nope. Sorry. I do an hour here on Mondays. I do every Monday unless I'm on, I'm away for the day for some reason from noon to 1 Eastern. And then we have a rotation for a second day a week. So I'm probably going to do tomorrow also, I believe. So I think I'll be doing tomorrow, noon Eastern again. And feel free to pop in and collaborate some ideas, but also feel free to jump into the traders room and throw some ideas. Barry is, good at pointing people in a direction of scan building and can help out with that for sure. He's been using the software forever and a day. So, you're not going to find someone, I don't even find anybody really more knowledgeable than Barry on building out scans and templates for a scan and bouncing some ideas with. And he's great like that. So, if you're welcome to, I believe I'll be back here tomorrow, but there's a different one of us here every day, as Steve and Andy, who also do this on the days that they're here. They're going to build scans as well as anybody for collaborating ideas back and forth. With that, again, Andy will probably do Friday. Steve will do Thursday. I'm pretty sure I'll do tomorrow again. You'd have to check your instructions in there, right? Look at what you got in here. Stop sending after whatever. Do you have it so it repeats symbols? I will tell you guys this. Do not have a strategy, trade the same symbol at the same time multiple times in an account. It will never work out well for you. It will put you in a short almost every single time. That's the way market mechanics work. It has nothing to do with us. It has to do with market mechanics and how bracket ordering works. Yeah, I don't think I can share the PDF in here. That's why I was saying to shoot me an email. Barry could probably, I think you could probably share it in the traders room. Can I share the PDF link in here? I don't know. I can't open it right now without opening things that I don't want exposed out into the public right now. So, all right, folks, that'll do it for me here. Anything else, you can also always reach out to us at info@trade-ideas.com. We can always be found there as well through email. I thank you all kindly for coming, hanging, and engaging on the day. And there's a URL. All right, yeah, so you know what it is? I can't pop that open right now. Yeah, if I pop that open, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to have something else pop out right now. I could bookmark that URL. That's what I'll do. I'll bookmark that URL for future reference. Thanks, Pepe. So, all right, guys, that'll do it for me for the day. I will likely, I say it's a 99.9% chance you're stuck with me again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.